What's up, guys? Ben here, bringing you another video today. It is Friday morning. Not a lot of update on the roster mania front. I gotta be honest, it's slow in the Call of Duty world. You know, Minnesota, Seattle, Boston, LA Thieves, LAG, all not moving at like a quick pace to make decisions about their team. So you're probably wondering, like, why hasn't there been any rumors? Why are we not hearing about teams? Because there's no teams being made right now. It's just really slow. So in lieu of that, I wanted to cover something else that's happened this week, which is the Microsoft-Activision merger. It seems like at the moment that is still going to happen. So let's talk about it. And I think what it means for like Call of Duty Esports, Overwatch League, Halo. Let's kind of run the gamut and kind of talk about what to expect if this merger happens over the next sort of few months and years in regards to their whole esports program. If you've been following the news this week, there was a court case between the FTC and Microsoft. The FTC had a emergency stay on this potential merger. They were trying to get a preliminary injunction to stop the thing. It went to a judge in California, I believe on the 9th Circuit, and that judge ruled against the FTC. So at the moment, as it stands, potentially early as next week, the Microsoft-Activision merger may go through. There's obviously a whole situation in the UK, but it seems like there are potential solutions that they're just going to kind of go through. So it seems like we're right on the precipice of this merger happening. Now, the FTC has filed an emergency motion with the full 9th Circuit Court of Appeals to try and get a injunction or an administrative stay on what's going on here. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, but I assume obviously Activision/Microsoft would be able to respond to this. And I don't know how fast the court's going to move. Obviously, if there's more delays of weeks, it means the deal might be off. So it's a mess. And it seems like smarter people than me seem to think, if I scroll through sort of this Twitter thread, from a lawyer, that it's possible that this is just going to kind of stick and the court may not rule in their favor. And even if they appeal to the Supreme Court, they're probably not going to rule in the FTC's favor there either. So seems like this merger is getting more likely and will likely be happening. Now, I think as a refresher going into this, sort of on both sides, there's a lot of esports programs. So on the Microsoft side, I think their biggest sort of esport they have right now, as far as their sort of first party titles go, is going to be Halo. Now, the problem with Halo is, I think as a game, it's not really blowing up. I think, yes, there was a lot of momentum when the game first launched. Viewership was really good for Halo, but it has slowly dwindled down event attendance, and the event sizes have gotten smaller, and the games is basically dead right now. There's just not a lot of fresh content, not a lot of people playing the new Halo at the moment. So as an esport, it's got a little bit of a murky future because there isn't, it's not like COD where there's consistent releases every year and there's money to spend. It just doesn't exist in the Halo world. So it is a little bit smaller. Now, outside of that, it's a little murky as far as Microsoft goes for esports. They own Smash GG, which is cool, but I'm curious to see what that happens potentially in a merger, because something like game battles is not really at the forefront of what Activision's been doing as of late, and maybe they merge the two. I don't know what goes on. Microsoft's not got a lot on the esports front. Now, on the Activision side, there's actually a lot going on along sort of all of their main IPs. Pretty much every massive IP that you can think of on the sort of PC or mobile gaming side for Activision, there is an esport. Hearthstone, there's a thriving esports program. Warcraft, Dungeons, they play a lot of esports there. And BlizzCon's obviously coming back, and I think that's going to expand some of that stuff. Obviously, Overwatch League, big. Call of Duty's got a couple. You've got COD Mobile, you've got the CDL, you've got some Warzone competitive. So as far as the sort of Activision Blizzard esports ecosystem, it is a lot, and leagues bigger, no pun intended, than Microsoft. So let's talk about it and what happens if this merger goes through. Obviously, there's going to be a reorg on the Activision side. It's going to change the leadership in some of these programs. I don't know who's going to stay or go. Again, I have no intel. As far as senior leadership goes, I just don't know who's going to stay or go in a reorg, or how fast the reorg is going to happen. Is that a this year thing, next year thing? I have no idea. But eventually some new people will be making decisions, providing oversight on decisions that current executives are making. So, okay. So I really think that there are pretty much three paths, and the third path is basically splitting the difference. There's two extremes. It's almost like a spectrum. So we're going to talk about it. I think one fork in the road is continuing as is, running esports first party, obviously bringing in tournament organizers and event production staff is needed to actually run events and leagues. But for the most part, the administration of things, the in-house function all stays within the organization of Microsoft. The other path is completely like washing your hands of it, writing a check to someone to basically just run and commercialize, these spaces, these games, or whatever. And then sort of the path in the middle is sort of splitting the difference, and some stuff stays in-house, some stuff is farmed out, and it kind of becomes a little bit more complicated. So I think the middle is kind of difficult to talk about because there's so many different versions of that, of what it can look like across like esports. So let's talk about the extremes on both ends. So first, let's talk about the in-house option. So we're going to start with Overwatch League. Now, Overwatch League is in a tricky spot. I think sort of the bigger issues or the massive issues of Overwatch League, to kind of really sort of sum it up. One is, it's not a marketable esport in North America. There really aren't a lot of big North American stars. There's not a lot of a big player base in North America. They just haven't really broken into that market, and it's just difficult for them to really penetrate and get growth there right now. Overwatch League and Overwatch in general is just not a popping game here in the US. Now in Asia, it's a little more popular, but that's why you're not really seeing a lot of events here. Europe is basically also kind of toast. So the business model of OWL is like really tricky. You've seen obviously this article on your screen about the Toronto Defiance situation. It seems like Overwatch League's kind of on a lifeboat. And I think that Overwatch League's best chance of survival going forward, or the Overwatch competitive scene, is I think very akin to like sort of the earlier days of COD and Halo, or maybe more like a CWL style, where I think that some of these businesses that are currently in definitely want to stay, and you can kind of have a partnership model. But I do think that opening up the ecosystem and creating a path to pro is going to make this, I think, or kind of put it on a path of more organic growth than what it is right now, which is, Overwatch League is an elite competition, but there's no real feeder to that. Like in North America, yes, there's challengers and lower level stuff, but it's not the level of what you've seen in console esports or even like CSGO. And I just think that they need to find a way to sort of drive that path to pro. It kind of all sort of funnels circularly in the ecosystem. And I think that's what's really missing right now. So whether it stays in-house, not in-house, I think Overwatch League as a format is going to change, because I just don't think this is sustainable in any form. Like even if you're just, putting out worst case, like I just think they need to rethink their business model and figure out how to get more people to participate. And when people participate, they'll watch, go to events, etc., etc. I think the other kind of thing we need to talk about in-house is what happens to, Call of Duty, because I think Call of Duty is kind of really interesting, and it almost ties into Halo as well. Because if you are newish, you might not have been here for the early MLG days, and well, early and mid and late MLG days, there was a time and a place, and this is like, early 2000s, mid 2010s, where you had these big MLG events in convention centers, and they were running multiple titles, a lot of Activision titles, some Microsoft titles, Blizzard titles. It was a celebration of all things esports. And there's even Microsoft stuff. You had Smash at some of these, rather not Microsoft, sorry, Nintendo. It was a celebration of esports. And I think for Halo in particular, it needs that as well. And the same issue that Overwatch League has, Halo has. And I think jacking onto or being a part of that Call of Duty world, where there's definitely audience overlap, there's definitely interest overlap, is really, really key. So this gets a little bit trickier though, I think, with sort of option A of like the CDL thing, right? Because I just find it difficult to see how the current CDL format really works in a way where they're just down to do combo CDL and Halo events. Like, I know the only combo event they've done so far was Major One last year, and that was really all things Call of Duty, right? You had COD Mobile there, you had Code, which is sort of the Call of Duty endowment fundraiser. I mean, that's an easy layup kind of collab, but I think the Call of Duty Halo stuff in the intersection would be really, really key. So, for me, if COD stays in-house, let's kind of like dive in what I think might happen to CDL. I think that there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment of the format. My personal thought is that I think one path that they can go down is transitioning away from the fully closed model and going to something that's a little bit more akin to what Valorant's doing, where you have these locked in partner teams, but you have a couple of spots. Right now we have 12. I think getting to 16 would be key. So 4 spots that people can qualify into. And there's essentially like promotion, relegation kind of element to it. I think that would drive a lot of participation. It would drive a lot of like interested kind of tier 2, maybe tier 1 orgs to get in the mix. Yes, it kind of changes the value of the franchise spots, and there's an economic issue there. But I think from a participation standpoint, a growth standpoint, that would be the key way to go about it. I think you would keep like a majority of the idea of the format, which is you have, you know, these kind of splits, they culminate in majors, and then it goes to a champs. Now, we'll get to why I think that I would adjust that, but I can see that being kind of where they land for a while. Now, are the owners open to kind of that model? That's a key question. I don't know. I haven't talked to any of them about it. Are they willing to kind of adjust a business model to bring those people in and kind of transition it? That's a great question. But I think that that is sort of potentially a path the CDL can go down. Obviously, they can continue to go down this closed system path with sort of the open tier 2 challengers that's got its own like champs. You know, that's really, really interesting. I think the other key thing for me when we talk about in-house, and this doesn't really get discussed, I think a lot in the CDL community, is COD Mobile. The viewership for COD Mobile is not entirely there yet, but the participation is massive. And I think people don't realize sort of the massive upside in COD Mobile esports. I don't think Activision has sort of figured it out, you know, 100% on what that system should look like, but eventually they will. And I would not sleep on COD Mobile becoming like as big as console COD, PC COD in 3 to 4 years, because it's such much more of a global game, especially in Asia, especially in India. There's just bigger reach. And once they kind of figure out how to get to explode, like, watch out. So, okay, I think that's a lot of discussion of what it would look like if things stay in-house. I think in summary, you may see more collaborative events, but you're going to see, I think, a continued transition away from the franchise model to more of a partner model. Potentially be the easiest way to kind of meet in the middle and all of that. And we'll see what it means for the number of events, et cetera, budget, et cetera. This Puckett tweet is interesting to me because this is sort of the other side of the spectrum, which is what happens if Microsoft wakes up one day and they're like, you know what? We're spending all this money on personnel to run all these esports programs. Why don't we just give it to a TO or, you know, a consulting firm and just let them just kind of run it third party. We'll put up the prize money. We'll put up the funding for events, but they'll basically handle all the backroom operations, competitive operations, functions, et cetera, and we just kind of support from a marketing angle. And that is essentially like what MLG did for a long time. They then were kind of in-house for a bit during that weird couple-year transition area of the CWL once, you know, ESL wasn't involved. And then obviously CDL started. So this is not like unprecedented. It's happened, especially in COD. And you see from Puckett's tweet, as well as, you know, for some folks who kind of know who this is, you know, Adam Apicella, Adam's clearly starting to think about this. Now, if you are newer, again, I want to explain who Adam is. Adam is one of the original employees in MLG. He's probably like employee number like 1 or 2 there. I think after Sundance and Sepso founded the company, Adam was like one of the first people they hired. So Adam has been around for the earliest days of MLG. He's you know, been in the inside part of Activision when they moved off of being third party to kind of being first party. So he kind of knows the ecosystem. I think as far as like a trusted operator for a full kind of third party situation, like he is your guy. For COD, for Halo, they do, you know, Esports Engine. I know Adam's obviously not a part of that now since they got sold to the Saudis and whatever. You know, they're obviously doing some COD Mobile stuff. Like if anyone is going to drive the boat as far as the growth of COD and Halo and even like Overwatch League, like I think Adam, wherever he goes next, can probably do it. What does it kind of mean for the scene? I actually think that as far as from the community angle, I actually think it may be sort of a better route, because I think sort of the issue when a publisher runs things in-house is there are just a lot of layers and bureaucracy, and they just can't move quick. And they're not efficient in the ways that they spend money because they're hamstrung into, you know, the amount of personnel they have. And anyone that runs a major company knows when you get to that side, there's just like benefits and cost centers and a lot of other backroom functions that just kind of like add to a lot of additional like overhead to these businesses being run, where I think as agencies are a little bit smaller, definitely can be a little bit more efficient. People wear multiple hats. They can use money more effectively. So I just see that as probably a more cost-effective option in an area of esports where even on the publisher side, I don't think that budgets are going up. They may be going in the other direction. So, you know, if it goes down this route, like you're going to probably see, and I don't know what will happen with the MLG name, but you would probably see the MLG events come back, right? You would see some version of the MLG circuit. You'll see, you know, big events. Yes, we might lose, you know, some more of the arena style COD events that we've liked. You know, Toronto event, like the Boston event, or in really cool arena style venues. If you want to run MLG events though, or MLG style events, it's going to be a little bit more convention center style. So like the ambiance is a little bit different, but maybe you can meet in the middle. You get kind of creative with the spaces, you know, even if you go to like, a Dallas Convention Center, a Fort Worth Convention Center, Anaheim. Like they have arena attachments to the convention center, so you can kind of meet in the middle there. But I see this as, personally for me, if I'm kind of forecasting where I think the market might go, I do think this is actually a lot more realistic than possible. I really think that there are potentially people in Microsoft that are going to look at the amount of money being spent at Overwatch League, Call of Duty Esports, Halo, COD Mobile Esports, World Series of Warzone, and Competitive Warzone. And they're just like, bro, we probably personnel on our side, to run these businesses is 7 figures. We could either give that money back to the company, and all the production costs we have now, we can just send to a vendor and tell them to figure it out, and then prize money as well. So I think this is definitely possible. Now, who would run it? Obviously, me personally, like I would love to see Adam run it. I do think Blast could do a really good situation. I would say for me personally, I really don't want to see ESL run it. I know ESL has done some great things in especially like CS, but ESL's past history with COD and Halo is not great. Halo, obviously, if you've ever seen the balloons pictures of Halo, you know what I'm talking about, the Halo World Championships balloons pictures. You know what people in that scene think of ESL? I think in the COD world, ESL ran the very early days, Black Ops 3, CWL, basically the first year of CWL after AW, and it didn't really go well. There were a lot of issues, not a lot of events. They invested heavily into these like online leagues in a lot of regions, and it was cool seeing that there was a CWL in Australia and New Zealand. You had a Europe kind of CWL, and you had North America, and all kind of merged at the end of the year. It just didn't really work out, and then eventually they transitioned to MLG things. So I would not be a fan personally of ESL coming in, but they would obviously be a potential option. So that is really the other side of the spectrum. And the middle is like a slow transition, I think, to probably that. I think they would, that is sort of the meet in the middle option of like keeping some stuff in-house, keeping some stuff out of house, reducing staff at the Activision Blizzard esports side that kind of run all this stuff. And you're kind of slowly moving and are sort of evaluating what you want to kind of push out to an external operator. You provide marketing support. You're providing prize sports support as like a marketing exercise. And that's just a very more long form version of the process. I think that's probably like the most realistic option. I don't think they're really going to go to either extreme. And I'm very curious to see like how they make a decision per esport, what happens here. Because to me is going back to this, like I think that in this kind of combined potential world of Activision and Microsoft, leaning into the synergy between some of these sort of groups of fandom and sort of fans, especially in regards to the shooters, I think is massive. I think you drive a lot of attendance and participation. And I feel like that should be sort of maybe a core goal here is like, how do we create these super events that we just kind of own? Because we're not going to be able to compete with the size of, an ESL Cologne, ESL Katowice, a Riot World Championship, Riot Worlds for League of Legends, big VCT events. Like we're not going to be able to compete with the size where they're selling out a 12,000 seat arena. But what we can do is we can go to a convention center and pack 5,000-6,000 people, and it's going to look cool and it's a cool experience. I think that's like really your core goal, and you can create a lot of like fear of missing out in those situations and driving people to participate. So I'm very curious to see what happens. We're going to keep posted on this merger as things going on, and I would love if people are interested on the Microsoft or Activision side to have you come on, scrap time or the flank and really talk about any future plans for your esports, because I think that'd be really cool, and the audience would love to hear about that. So yeah, a little rambly, but I just wanted to collect my thoughts on all of this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. As always, guys, we'll see you on the next video.